pass the savings on to you. No, save the planet. Boom! Right? If you want your towels washed every night, you're killing our children, you're drowning them, or they're going to catch fire. We don't know which is going to happen first. Either they're going to catch fire and then drown, or they're going to drown and then their bodies will catch fire. We don't know exactly the sequence, but both of these things are going to happen. And it's in everything. Save the planet. No, I don't want to save the planet. The planet's going to be fine. The planet will be fine. The planet has been through a lot worse than this. How about save money? This is what happens when you get into things like Agenda 21. And the final thing I'll say about the ecology thing is this. I learned this from my good friend Andrew Breitbart. Everything that the left argues is predicated on one thing and one thing only. They don't have facts, they don't have logic, they don't have history, they don't have any of these things. So they have one thing and one thing only. They have unearned moral superiority. Every one of their policies and every question they ask of us is predicated on one thing and one thing only. I'm a better person than you are. And because I'm a better person than you are, I don't have to deal with any of your messy facts because you're a racist, you're a homophobe, I don't have to listen to you. I'm a better person than you are. So, just before I took this present job, back in 2008, I was wrapping up a job I'd had for 5 years where I was the editor on a show called Sunday Morning Shootout. I was editing television. And I had about 2 weeks left in my job, and I was in the cafeteria one morning making myself some coffee. And I was the only conservative. There were 40 liberals and me. And people used to walk around so they didn't have to go past my edit day because my thought waves might infect them somehow. And they would have, too. And I'm in the cafeteria, and this woman I've never met before in my life, this 27-year-old liberal, walks in, and she says, "Well, you must be that conservative I heard about." I am, Bill, yes. I am that guy. I guess you don't care about protecting our environment, then. This is the second sentence out of her mouth. I guess you don't care about protecting our environment, then, huh? I said, "Well, what environment do you want to protect?" She said, "What?" I said, "What environment do you want to protect?" The Earth has had 8 times more carbon dioxide in it than it does today. Carbon dioxide levels have been 5 or 6 times higher. They've been several times lower. The Earth has been much, much hotter than it is today. The Earth's been much colder than it is today. If you look at climate history, you will see the history of the Earth's climate does this. It just does this. It's a heartbeat. It's a heartbeat that's been in perpetual motion. You're the guys that want to stop that beating heart, put a pin in it, and then have everything be a straight line that way afterwards, as if you could control that. But that's what you want. So when you say you want to protect the environment, what environment do you want to protect? Do you want to protect the 2008 environment? Do you want to protect the 1950 environment? Do you want to protect the environment of 1400 AD during the medieval warm period? Do you want to protect the environment of 65,000 years ago when there was an ice age? Do you want to protect the environment of 200 million years ago when the center of the country, which is now the grasslands of Kansas, were under 100 feet of water, and there were dinosaurs and pterodactyls and ferns and thousands of plants and all this biodiversity and all this miracle of life until carbon dioxide levels fell to the dangerously low levels that we live in today. What environment do you want to protect? They can't respond because they don't have any answers. They just have this unearned moral superiority. I'm a good person. I care about the planet and our children. You're a conservative. You're a bad person. You don't care about children. No, I'm going to kick that right out from underneath your feet. I'm not going to let you go there. One more quick thing on the unearned moral superiority. I was at an event in Oberlin, the most liberal college in America. Oberlin is where reason and logic go to die. And I did my little conservative 45 minutes, and up in the stadium's bleachers there was an 18-year-old blonde kid who had all the answers, you know. He's been to Oberlin College. He's a freshman, so he's got it all figured out. And he says, I noticed that you're a conservative, so I suppose you don't believe in affirmative action either, huh? In other words, you miserable lowlife, look at me, I'm an extremely advanced, morally fit person. I said, no, I don't believe in affirmative action. He says, why not? I said, because I'm not a miserable racist like you are, that's why. What? I'm not a racist like you are. What do you mean? Look, man, you're the one who says that black students should be able to get into a college with a 650 on their SATs while white kids need an 800 to get in. You're the one that's saying that black kids aren't as smart as white kids. You're the one that's saying they're not as good. You're the one that's saying they're not as good because of their skin color. I don't believe that for a second. I think any student that studies as hard as a white student, any black student studies as hard as a white student can clear any bar that a white student can clear. I think it's a matter of individual effort and individual initiative on a one-on-one basis. I don't believe in these horrible racist policies that you believe in. I'm actually a little embarrassed to be in the same room as you. See, this is what it sounds like when you understand and believe this stuff, because as Andrew Breitbart said, it's all predicated on this false premise. So if you want to argue with these people, you have to listen for the dog whistle. What part of their policies or their question is the part that makes them better than you? Find out where that is and go right at that and kick that out. And once they kick that out, they've got nothing left. Nothing. The guns thing is a great example. You know, they've got us talking about 30-round magazines and pistol grips and all this other stuff. And it's like, people say to me, well, you're a gun supporter? Yes. Well, why do you have guns? I have guns to kill people. I have guns to kill bad guys with. What? Did I hear you just say you have a gun in order to kill people with? Yes. I'm not worried about deer breaking into my apartment. I'm not worried about bears raping the wife that I don't have. Those things don't concern me. Bad predators, human predators do. I have a gun to kill people. I have a .45 automatic sidearm to kill bad guys at close range, and I have an AR-15 to make sure they don't get into close range. Because if you have this discussion, you see, all of a sudden these people realize you're not ashamed of what you believe in. You're not doing the ducking. Well, hunting is an important tradition here in America. Well, I've got a document that's written on parchment that's 230 years old that guarantees me this right. Listen, I understand these rights. I revere these rights. I understand them and I revere them, but the American people don't get this at all. So that when they hear you say things like, well, I have a Second Amendment right, they think, well, that's 250 years ago. That's muskets. No. When we start talking about bad guys and predators, we start talking about it on a philosophical level, not on a policy level. We talk about 30-round magazines we're going to lose. We talk about killing people who are trying to rape our girlfriends or women defending themselves against rape and murder by their boyfriends. Now we're talking philosophy, and we always win when we talk philosophy because we got the best philosophy. This is what we have to do about the message. We have to stop playing on their battlefield. They've got their artillery dialed in. They've got machine gun nests with overlapping fields of fire. They've got barbed wire, and we just walk forward, calmly holding our rifles. Get caught up in the barbed wire. They gun us down and blow us to bits because we walk onto their battlefield. I'm not going to fight on their battlefield anymore. They're going to fight on my battlefield now. They don't know what to do. When that kid accused me of racism, and I called him a racist and proved it to him, because he is. Because he actually is. Because affirmative action actually does say that black people have to be given lower standards because they're not good enough. We don't believe that for a second. Now he's lost. Because all he had was his moral superiority, and I've called him on it. I've made him the racist because he is the racist. They're lost now. Lost. They don't know what to do. So it's a great skill to have. Let's take some more questions. Yes, sir.
Mr. Virtual President, as an advocate of the information age government, what changes do you foresee in the information age military? As the virtual civilian leader of the military, how does it change to accommodate appropriate use around the world and in our own country?
That is an excellent question. That is a really top-notch, excellent question. And in order to answer that question, we have to go to the American theory of the military, at least the American theory of armed forces after World War II. Our policy has always been, but especially after World War II, our policy, look, our military is outnumbered wherever we go. Whenever the United States goes into combat with somebody, we're outnumbered. We're outnumbered 5 to 1, 50 to 1, 100 to 1, 500 to 1, but we're always outnumbered, always. And so our philosophy is twofold. Number one, we know we're always going to be outnumbered. So that means that our individual soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen have to be effective. They have to be so lethal that one of them can kill 50 or 500 of their guys. So there's a lethality that's involved that comes from being outnumbered, which is why we have the best fighter planes, the best weapons in the world. But there's something else about the American theory of soldiers that's very important, and about our theory of the military. Our idea as conservatives is that every single one of us is an irreplaceable individual. These are citizens. These are people that we're sending off to war. They're not the masses. They're not cannon fodder. They're not something that we harvested from the plains of Uzbekistan or just scooped up off the fields of Russia. These are individual people. We want them to come home. It's important that we have these people come home. And in a rich country like America, we make a conscious decision every day in our military to spend money in order to save lives. That's why some of these fighter jets cost $90 million. Because the life of that pilot is worth $90 million. right? That guy, we want that guy to come home. I'm not going to tell his kids that his dad wasn't worth $90 million. We're the richest country in the world. If we have to have a fighter jet that costs $90 million, then that's what we'll do, by God, because he's worth it. And that fighter jet not only has to bring that individual home, because he's an actual citizen, an actual person, but that fighter jet's going to have to take down 20 enemy fighters or 50. So this entire theory of American military is that we will gold-plate things if we have to, because money is something that we have. And they have to be extremely lethal, and they have to be extremely effective, and we want our people to come home. That's why we have the best equipment in the world. And by the way, as a small detour for the gun lovers out there, this is the difference between the AK-47 and the AR-15, or the M4, the M16, right? The M4 is a much more difficult weapon to manufacture. It's much more accurate. It carries a smaller round, and it requires a much more highly trained guy. But if you look at our soldiers deployed today, this is a small thing, but it's very, very important. You look at soldiers in Afghanistan today, every single one of those guys on their rifle, they have optics. They don't have iron sights, they have optics. They have three power sights. Why do we do that? Why do we have optics on our guys? We have optics on our guys, and we give our guys accurate weapons so that they can kill the enemy before they get into range, before they get into effective AK-47 range. We're dropping these guys, because these guys are doing this spray and pray stuff, or they're holding up inaccurate weapons with iron sights. Our theory is, give our guys accurate weapons and give them telescopic sights so they can kill the bad guys before they get into range to kill our guys. This is the philosophy that takes place all across the U.S. military. So to answer your question, technology requires money, and we are a rich country, at least we used to be before these people got a hold of us, and so we can afford to do things like this. Drones, for example, provide many opportunities and many of the lethality that we would have had to put pilots in harm's way for. And we don't have to put pilots in harm's way for with a drone. If a drone gets shot down, I don't care. I'd lose 100 drones before I'd have a pilot shot down. I'd lose 1,000 before I'd have a pilot shot down. So drones are an information age technology. They're a force multiplier in terms of reconnaissance, the ability to look down on the battlefield and say, hey, there's a guy hiding behind that corner. We've got a patrol going through Fallujah, and there's 15 guys behind that fence. They think they're hiding, but they're not. These are extremely valuable things that we can do as the most technologically advanced country in the world. So we need to be putting more and more money into this. Now, I'm a pilot, and I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to join the Air Force, and my vision was soft. I went for the Air Force Academy vision test in '76, and my right eye was 20/25 on my left eye. Just missed it. So as a guy who wanted to be a fighter pilot, when I think about fighter drones, about unmanned fighter airplanes, part of me says, I don't like this idea. I want to get up there behind the stick and I want to shoot down the bad guys myself. But as we get into these advanced technologies, we find out that the F-15 and F-16 fighters, best fighters in the world today, F-22, F-35, same thing, they're limited to about a 9G turn. In other words, the airplane is limited in the amount of turn, and turn is winning in a dogfight, by the fact that if you turn any more sharply than this, the pilot will just black out. But drones can turn at 20 Gs, and that means you can't defeat those things. So all of these things are actually good and valuable to have. The problem with mechanizing warfare too much is, I want all our guys to come home, but we also have to understand that so much of what actual soldiering is today is on-the-spot decision-making. And I salute every single veteran in this room, and nobody stands before me in my respect for guys that went ashore Normandy or up Mount Suribachi, or the guys that stood at Cemetery Ridge or Bunker Hill for that matter. But we have never had a deadlier military than we have today. The guys we have in the field today are the best soldiers we've ever fielded. And women too. They're the best soldiers we've ever put in the field. Because not only are they the most deadly soldiers we've ever fielded, they're also have to be marriage counselors, and they have to be traffic cops, and they have to be school administrators. These guys, we lost 4,000 guys in Iraq. If this really was a war for oil, we wouldn't have lost anybody. We would have just cordoned the oil fields off and flown them under air cover to Basra and put them on tankers and shipped them home. All the people we lost in Iraq, we lost in the cities helping these people build a democracy. We lost them running patrols. We lost them standing in front of Iraqi civilians while terrorists shot at them. That's the difference between our military and their military. Their military hides behind their own women. Our military puts our own guys in front of their women and children to protect them. Their women and children. We protect with our own lives. That's the most decent military that's ever taken the field. But I expect no less from people serving the American people. Next question. Yes, sir.
Just a hypothetical question. If Obama wins the House in 2014 and puts 2 or 3 more liberal
Judges.
Judges in the Supreme Court,
Uh-huh.
what's going to prevent Obama from canceling the 2016 presidential election and declaring himself a dictator?
They're not that stupid. Unfortunately, they're not. If Barack Obama were to simply say, I'm going to run for a third term in violation of the 24th Amendment? I forget my guy. 22nd? If he violates the constitutional amendment, then people will take to the streets with rifles. They're not that stupid. They don't have to be that stupid. It's much easier.
That explains the gun sales.
That explains the gun sales, explains everything. What you don't really need to fear them doing anything that's going to activate the other half of the country. Barack Obama can't say, I am hereby declaring myself dictator, because if he does, the country will rise up and that'll be the end of it. The thing to fear is that Barack Obama does 2 terms and then Michelle runs for office.
Yeah.
See, that's the smart play. And then they use all their voter fraud, which is pervasive and apparently is nowhere worse than Minnesota. From some of the stories I've heard the last couple of days, I can't believe it. Somebody goes down to a polling place and says, I'm going to vouch for these 15 people that just got off the bus. Really? Yeah, they're all friends of mine. Okay. They all vote, they get on the bus, they go to the next precinct. I'm going to vouch for these 15 friends of mine. Yep, okay. It's insane. It's madness. And when you try to correct these voter fraud laws by having voter ID, picture ID, now you have to get it passed, which means you have to overcome the voter fraud in order to get anti-voter fraud legislation passed. It's a very, very tough nut to crack. But you can do it if you get the messaging correct. I think the problem with our side is we don't know how to message it. What we're really saying is, listen, if you think that if you're a Democrat and we're talking about preventing voter fraud, why would you be opposed to that? You're the ones who think we cheat. We're talking about stopping cheating. Stopping cheating for everybody. If you're against voter fraud legislation, what you're really saying is your side can't win without cheating. Is that what you're saying? You're really saying that your side has to cheat to win? We know that college kids go around and vote in buses. I heard this story earlier, that college kids would get in buses and they go vote one place to another to another. So are you really saying that democracy is wrong? Are you really saying that there's no place for democracy? Is that what you're saying? When you get on that bus and you vote more than once, are you saying that democracy is a bad idea? Are you saying that the political power belongs to the people who cheat the most? Is that what you're saying? Is that your party? Is that your party? Is that what the Democratic Party's become now? A party that says we have to cheat to win and it's okay to cheat to win because we couldn't win any other way? Come out and say so. And then you take away their moral superiority. They claim that voter suppression is the problem, right? They say, well, if we had ID, then some people wouldn't get to vote because they wouldn't get the voter ID. Eric Holder makes this exact case. He says, we can't have photo ID for voting because that would disenfranchise poor people and minorities. And I say to Eric Holder, what a racist and disgusting and reprehensible, vile policy is that? Are you saying, Mr. Attorney General, that minorities are too stupid to get an ID once every 4 years? Are you saying they're too lazy to spend 2 hours every 4 years to go down to the DMV and get a state-issued ID? I don't believe that for a second. You're really saying that about minorities? You're really saying they're that stupid and that lazy? What a horrible, rotten, disgusting, disgraceful thing to say. Now, if you're saying it's too much trouble to go stand in line at the DMV for 2 hours every 4 years in order to get to an ID, what you're really saying is that a government-run agency like the DMV is such an awful place to be that no one should have to stand in line there for 2 hours, and that's why we have to give our health care over to this exact same system, right? Is that what you're saying? That it's too much trouble, it's just such an awful experience? No. You tell that to the guys who didn't come home. You tell that to the men that died in the Pacific or on the beaches of Normandy or in France or in Kandahar or in Baghdad or in Vietnam or in Korea. You tell those men that didn't come home that they died because it was too much trouble. It's too much trouble for you to stand in line for 2 hours to get a voter ID every 4 years. It's too much trouble. You tell that to the guys who didn't come home and don't have a future and don't have kids, gave their lives for this process. You tell them and you tell their families it's too much trouble. Yeah, your dad died for nothing. Your dad died for freedom and the right to have fair elections, or your son did. But go and stand in line for 2 hours. That's too much trouble for me, man. You don't deserve to vote. It's just that simple. Everybody talks about rights, nobody talks about responsibilities. We want fair elections, that means you have to have a picture ID. If you think it's too much trouble to get a picture ID once every 4 years, you don't deserve to vote. If this is all your country asks of you, if all we are asking of you in exchange for all of these benefits, in exchange for all of these handouts, you stand in line for 4 hours or 3 hours once every 4 years, that's all you have to do and that's too much for you, you don't deserve to vote. You don't deserve to be free. You don't deserve elections. You don't deserve any of it. You're selfish, miserable lowlifes. And if you're telling me that 2 hours every 4 years is too much trouble for you for this freedom and for all these benefits, you don't deserve to vote. I'm sorry, no. Because voter suppression, voter fraud is voter suppression. Eric Holder will say, well, it's not fair to suppress a person's vote. Well, if somebody votes illegally, and I vote legally, if I make a legal vote for Mitt Romney and somebody casts an illegal vote for Barack Obama, they have stolen my vote. They have suppressed my vote. If somebody votes twice, one time, they get to take my vote, but then they've taken your vote by voting twice. Even if they're legal voters, by voting twice, they've stolen somebody else's vote. If they vote 5 times for Barack Obama, they've stolen 5 conservative votes for Mitt Romney. They've stolen them. It's like they locked them up in a room and wouldn't let him go vote. It's not so hard to figure out. And if you want to congratulate Eric Holder on his incredibly liberal policies for not having voter ID or picture ID, you can't get in to tell him that because you need a picture ID to enter the Justice Department building. Craziness. Next question. Yes, sir.
I'm worried that they're just not going to give up that moral superiority.
Of course they
maybe argue about 60% as well as you. Some people could decide with it, but I quote win a lot of discussions with liberal people that basically just get ticked and walk away because they can't answer the questions. But I think if you look at what's happening nationally, and especially because of the education, there's a whole lot of young people that they'll take a certain wedge issue. Gay marriage is one, gun control can be another one, a whole set of these things, and it's just plain, we are morally superior, we're not giving it up from the liberal side, and they're going to vote that way because to do otherwise is to be just, complete trash, right?
They're not going to get to hold on. They're not going to get to hold on to their unearned moral superiority because I know they're not going to give it up, but I'm going to take it from them. I'm going to take it from them. They keep it because nobody takes it from them. No one's fought them, no one's confronted them, no one's gone head to head with them, no one. So they keep it because we let them keep it, but I'm not going to let them keep it anymore. I'm going to take it from them. I'm going to do to them what I did to that kid who tried to tell me that I was wrong and evil because I was against affirmative action, when in fact affirmative action is wrong and evil. I'm not going to let them keep it. I'm going to take it from them. And that should be all of our policies and positions by now. We've been playing defense for 50 years. It's like we had look, I'm a Gator football fan, and there's a certain amount of tragedy attached to that position. When I went to college, my first year, our team went 0-10-1. That was, we tied our second game. It was the highlight of our year. We got better since then. But the thing about it is, you have to just understand that you just can't give it to them. You have to actually go out and take it. I'm tired of playing defense. The reason I brought up the Gators was this. We were playing Florida State one year. We hate Florida State. I'd rather have the country fall to jihadis than fall to Sunnis. But one year we were up. It was the fourth quarter. There was about 5-6 minutes left in the game. We were up by 28 points. We had a 28-point lead with 6 minutes left in the game. So we start playing this defense, right? We're going to play the prevent defense. So Florida State gets the ball. They score a touchdown. They get a little fired up. Now we're up by 3 touchdowns. We're up by 21 points. We kick it off to them. They kick it off to us. We fumble the ball. They pick up the ball. They get another touchdown. Now we're up 14 points, and now they are motivated. And their stands are on fire, and all the fans are cheering. So they kick off to us. It's an onside kick. They recover the onside kick. They score. Now we're up by 7. Finally, they tied the game. Now it felt like a loss. And they had a joke that said, what's the difference between the Florida Gators and a dollar bill? You can get 4 quarters out of a dollar. But I'm tired of this. I'm tired of being dragged off a cliff with our fingernails in the concrete, watching us just lose ground, lose. And our entire strategy is, how slowly can we lose ground? I'm tired of playing this kind of game. I want to take ground. I want to recapture ground. If we lost a hill, I want that hill back. If we had a flag on that hill, I want a flag back on that hill. And I don't only want our territory back, I want their territory now. They're evil people, and they have evil designs, and they cheat to win. They don't deserve any kind of fair play. I'm not going to, look, I'm not going to sacrifice my internal principles, but I'm going to do everything in my power to beat these people. And the best way I can give you an example of how I feel about this is to go back to the Marine Corps in the Pacific. Right after, during the Battle of Guadalcanal, the Marines had never met the Japanese before. This was the beginning of the war in the Pacific. So the Marines were on Guadalcanal, and there's this horrible, horrible, horrible fighting, hand-to-hand, and massacres on both sides. There was a little island off the coast, off the main island, little tiny little island, and there was a garrison of about 70 Japanese out there, and they were about a mile offshore or something.